Hello, welcome back to another episode of One Man's Journey. My name is Christopher William, and it has been quite some time since I've done an episode, mostly because I've been training and practicing to prepare for a long walk here in Portugal along a path called the Camino Português, which is also part of the longer route system called the Camino de Santiago, which is a kind of a pilgrimage that was around for, it's been around for a very long time, a very kind of a religious and spiritual pilgrimage that the most popular one starts in the French and Spanish border, goes all the way across northern Spain, and then goes into Santiago de Compostela. And at that place is kind of where, it's kind of like the Mecca, I guess, in some ways, of those that are doing the pilgrimage. But there's many different routes to take, and one that you can take is from here in Portugal, and starting in Porto and going up to Santiago de Compostela. And so it's a shorter walk than the most popular one, but it's still something that's longer than I've done before. I've never done a full 2 to 3 week walk consistently every day, anywhere from 15 to 25 kilometers a day. So I've been practicing getting my body attuned and conditioned for that. And so I've just been really focused on that. And so I haven't really been, kind of geared toward any kind of content creation or anything like that. So, and then another thing is too, it's like when you're just starting out, it's hard to, when you don't get any feedback and stuff, it's hard, I think, sometimes to really get motivated for a part of me to come back and to do another one. But today, I felt inspired because lately I've been reading a lot of books specifically geared about men, and kind of the situations that a lot of men are going through, not just today, but I think have been going through for a long time, but I think something's coming to fruition in these days. And I just got done watching a short video clip from a YouTube channel called Modern Wisdom, and ironically, the man's name that does it, his name is Chris Williams, and today he was talking with someone about why men are so, quote, checked out, and it was in reference to men kind of pulling themselves out of relationship, and it was mostly specifically geared toward relationship with women. But also just in relationship with others in general. And it was a fascinating kind of short conversation. It was like 15 minutes, I think, like that. So it was part of the larger interview. But what I really got from not just the interview, but it was really the comments. And I really like going to the comments in these particular YouTubes or whatever, Rumble or whatever you're doing, because it's in the comments where you get a lot of information, because you get people really kind of triggered is the right word, triggered probably, but also activated in terms of the subject. And so men were just like one after the other talking about why they're checked out, and then also the reason why they're okay with being checked out, meaning, so they all had different reasons. And there's some men that were saying, yes, this has been a struggle for me. I'm really trying to find my way back into the fray again. And I think one of the main reasons why I connected with this so much is because I too feel like I am part of that demographic of a man who is not really, I don't have many friends. I have one man that I talk to occasionally, that I sort of became acquainted with on social media. I was involved with a community for a long time, and I am no longer involved with them. And so that's really left me into kind of an island unto myself. And in one way, it's part of me likes it that way. To be totally honest, there is a part of me that really likes kind of being in this quiet kind of solitude, and I do my thing, and I go on my walks, and I do my job, and just do my thing. And I couldn't tell you how many men were saying that over and over again on the comment section. and that they were just pleased as punch to just be able to be in their own worlds doing their own thing. And one of the things that the host, Chris Williams, was curious about, being a man, I believe, in his late 30s, I think, mid to late 30s, I think, was the fact that even libido was no longer something that was driving men to go pursue relationships. Somehow, over the span of time, even men's libido, in some ways, has been sort of tampered down, and the idea of just being in one's own life actually has more pleasure than activating or meeting their libido. And me being 52 years old, I'm kind of going on the south end of that. Not that I don't have libido, but in terms of just biologically speaking, my sort of engine rev is not as much as it was when I was in my 20s. But just the fact that the desire for that kind of lack of relationship is more appealing is really telling in many ways. And there's lots of reasons for it, and some that I agreed with and I understood, and some that I didn't. Many men talk about just the struggles with the relationships they've been in. So they've just decided, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm out. And maybe in some ways I feel a part of me probably saying the same thing. Like, I've seemed to have been very much not a very good fit for relationships. So there's a part of me that probably figures like, I'm probably just best on my own, and not to mess with anybody else, because clearly I can't get this thing right. So that's something coming from my own personal experience. And again, I'm coming from a part of me, because that's also what I was steeped in for 10 years. So when I can feel that there's a part of me that feels that way, and men aren't using that language in these comment sections, because I think they're fused to this part of them who has been hurt, who has been, probably put through the ringer in some ways. Now, I'm not saying that that's all men, right? I know that there are many men who have been abusive and aggressive, and they've, many men who deserve some of the things that have come to them because of the way they've treated people. But I also think there's a lot of men who have been treated poorly too, and I think it's been in the reverse. And yet, because we think that men are somehow, generally speaking, the bad guy, we can't discern, we can't just, take it case by case. It just becomes this blanket statement. In much the same way that many men will blanket statement women, all womankind, in one particular way because of their personal experiences. So now we're in a state where we're kind of blinded by these experiences, and we're just going to say, you know what, I don't need it. Men saying I don't need women, and women saying I don't need men. And so now we're kind of in our own sort of worlds, doing our own thing. And many of them, not all, but many will say that they're, pleased as punch to be in that state. I think if you were to maybe dig in a little bit deeper, there may be aspects of them that wouldn't feel that way. Even as I feel my own, I can say that I have a part of me that feels comfortable in the sort of solo island unto himself kind of existence. But yet I can also feel the lover in me, or the husband, or the father, the mate, the king, and whatever label you want to put to that. There is that human, too, the human being in me that desires connection and connectivity and relationship and love and all this stuff. So there's this interesting battle that goes on inside of each of us, I think, that are in this particular situation. And so I just found what many men are going through to be just a very clear indicator of, what could be happening to all of life in regards to men and women and relationship. What does that mean for the future of family and our children? Will we have clearly big evidence showing that, there's a huge gap a birth gap going on, and that there will be at some point less and less children being born. And I think that's what at some point will start to peak. And people talked about population collapse, in which there just will not be enough kids being born to keep up with the current population. It's just going to decline. And I think there's been some things called the childless world, where if that trend continues over that arc, if things were to stay in that sort of path, you could potentially have a childless world. So that's stunning. It's just really stunning to really kind of really deeply take in that could possibly be a reality. It's a dotted line reality. It's not set in stone, but there's the math is working its way down that way, and the reactions are backing that up. The reactions of men and women in childbearing years are showing that, and so there's this really interesting gap between the two, and it's I'm really taking this in not just from like a social science perspective, which a part of me can do. I'm into that sort of thing and look at it intellectually, but also reflected in terms of me, myself, and the gap and the polarity that lives inside of me, and wanting to really reconcile these two aspects of myself, my loner, my lone wolf, and my mate, and wanting to come to some sort of communion and understanding, negotiation between those two. And I know that I have work to do to put myself out there into the world. I've been so used to one particular energy in my life, and when you get used to that, it's hard, to step outside and really connect with people when I can feel a part of me being a bit protective. And that's okay. There's discernment, I think, that needs to happen, and really wanting to be with people that I really feel connected to. Not that I have to agree with all the way, but people that have a similar outlook on life and desires and curiosities and maybe differences, so that I can learn from them and they can learn from me. And so it's really going out and stepping out more and more. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm doing this walking trip, is because there will be other people that are on that same path doing this particular walk. Now, everyone's going to have different life circumstances and stuff, and that will be interesting. I will be going and staying in these little hostels, and they're called albergues, and they're only for the people that are doing this walk. And so there's going to be lots of people in these little hostels, and you're going to be in very close quarters. And so it's going to be interesting for me to feel my lone wolf, man on an island person being in contact with other people, and how do I interact with them, and how do I engage them, and how do I assert myself, and all this stuff. So it's going to be an interesting experience for me to do that. So I just wanted to address this because I just thought it was fascinating, and if there's other people that happen to be listening to this, whether man or woman, but I'm mostly obviously addressing it to men, about where you're at with your own life in terms of your relationship to relationality. If you're a man that's kind of again, like I say, an island unto himself, completely isolated, or maybe you're just living by yourself, but you do have people that you connect with, but you're still pretty much alone to yourself. Or are you someone who's trying to break out of that, who's wanting more relationship and is struggling to make that happen? Or are you fully invested in a relationship, in a family, and you're struggling with that, or you are happy as a clam with that? There's such this wide spectrum of where we are at as just human beings in terms of how we relate to other people. And the reasons for that, and the protections, and the needs and wants and desires of all of that. And it's not about trying to say, well, we really should be getting together, and men should be finding, women to communicate with, because I think there is something there. I believe that. I really believe that there is something to being in relationship. I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. I really don't. I feel like I'm in a phase right now where I needed to kind of close in and be to myself and have a relationship with myself. As I've written in my post before, the self to self bonding that I've needed. And I feel like what's coming out for me is something that's wanting to arise more. I'm really wanting to go out and connect with other people. So there is this desire for that. I feel in me a desire for relationship and romance and friendship and brotherhood. So it's in me. I can't imagine I would be remiss to think that I wouldn't have that at all in the remaining years of my life. That would be very sad, I think, to me. But for some, that may be like, that's cool for me. I'll deal with that. So I think it all comes down to our experiences and how we related to all these things and how it's affected who we are. It's just quite interesting phenomena when we start looking at the overall effects of what this could do, especially when it comes to family and children. And one person said on their comment, my mom and dad split when I was like 2 years old. My dad never dated at all. My mom only dated twice, and they were both happy. They're super happy being alone. And he modeled that. He saw how happy they were being alone, and that's what he got templated, and he had no desire. So there's clearly, I think, things that have happened in our past lives too, or our other lives, that contribute to this thing of like, I'm just going to be alone. I'm not going to do this anymore, because I think there's a lot more that's happened in our past, in our soul histories too, that I think add to that story about whether or not we're going to be in a relationship or not with other people. So it's quite a fascinating topic, and I'd be very interested to hear your personal experience with that, and just to get some dialogue going. And I really feel like for many men who are in that state of feeling isolated and alone, I think it's important to connect with at least other men who were in the same situation. It's was the impetus for me to create this platform called One Man's Journey, because I wanted it to be a place, I would like it to be a place for men to come together where we can talk about things like this and get a sense that, you know what, I am alone, I do like being alone, but a part of me doesn't want to, and I want to have conversation and I want to have connection, but I don't know how to do it. And it doesn't have to be with a woman, it can be with another man. Maybe that's safer. That's kind of what my idea was with all of this. It was kind of like, I think this is the reason why I got so inspired by this video clip. And I'll even post it below so that you can take a look at it and take a look at the comments as well, because comment sections are very, very clear indicators about what people are going through. And maybe some might be quite hyperbolic, quite exaggerated on some way, but I think that's from a part of them that's speaking their truth. So, and then how this relates to women, it would be interesting as well, and what that chasm is here between us men and women, that's creating this kind of dynamic socially right now. Would be very interesting to get your take on it as well. So, yeah. That's kind of really what I wanted to talk about. I can't think of any other place that I really wanted to go, but just to explain my personal experience, what I'm still moving through, struggling with, contending with, wanting to move into, where I've been, and to take it on as a personal understanding for myself, and then also to connect with you to see what it's like, for what's going on for you right now. So I really encourage you and would love to hear what's going on for you around this idea and this topic. So thank you for taking this in, and I hope that we can start a conversation sometime soon around this. All right. Bye for now.